Oh, let me tell you something. Bustin' makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, it's Gil Barron.
Hey, Jay. How you doing, man?
I am doing swell. I remember we talked about doing this a week ago?
Yeah, on the Ali Ramirez show, we talked about it.
The Ali Ramirez Zoom show that was just literally us talking in a Zoom together because her internet crapped out on her and wouldn't support a full stream. And you wanted to talk about Mulan, and
yeah,
I remember Mulan.
Everybody mad at me.
We're not talking about the new Mulan that everybody hated. We're talking about that old Mulan that only a few people, I think, hated. 1998, an animated musical, historical. There's a lot of signifiers here on Wikipedia. Action adventure film. Disney's 36th animated feature. Grossed over $304 million. 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Gil, what's your beef?
I have specifics, and I think the conversation that we're going to have is going to center around the concept of diegetic versus non-diegetic comedy. And that is always a place that will take me in or out of a movie. And you know the term diegetic, right?
Yeah, I've only heard it referred to music, though, because diegetic music, for the listeners out there who don't know, diegetic music is music that's used within a scene that a character is listening to, or they're just playing in a location. Non-diegetic is when it's the score or a song from the soundtrack that's playing over it.
Right. So the question in terms of comedy, most people don't think of comedy as in terms of diegetic versus non-diegetic. But there is the concept of, does this joke take place within the reality of the story, or is it a joke for the parents at home?
Right.
Like, is this character really making this joke at this person who is not going to get it because it's a reference to something modern, or is that joke for me? And here, a lot of the non-diegetic humor ends up affecting the story in a way that hurts it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a take. This is a take.
Look, the first place you have to start with Mulan is clearly, I get the importance of the movie.
Right.
Clearly, in terms of representation, it's incredibly important. I'm looking at the voice cast now, and this is a who's who of Asian actors during this time, during the late 90s. We're starring Ming-Na Wen. I don't know if at that point she was Ming-Na, but she's Ming-Na Wen on Wikipedia.
Yep.
Yeah, and also Lea Salonga does the singing voice. Yeah, it's for sure a very important movie for its time. Sometimes that ends up overshadowing where the movie ends up. I also recognize that we are at sort of the end of what we call the Disney Renaissance, right? The Disney Renaissance starts in 1989, kind of goes through the 90s. For me, for my purposes, this is, you said 1998, right?
Yes. So officially, according to Disney folks, this is the second to last movie of the Disney Renaissance. Yeah.
I'm 14 at this point, so I am beyond where my Disney love, would have been. And my Disney love, my Disney period is really at the center of the Renaissance, right? It's Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King are the ones that hit during my really young childhood and when I'm supposed to be loving these movies, right? So I recognize that I'm already a teenager, I'm already cynical and hate the world, and I'm looking at this movie as a kid and being what the fuck is this? Perfectly reasonable to say this isn't specifically targeted toward me. So I wanted to get those out of the way. It's perfectly okay for anyone to look at me and say, you don't get to have an opinion about this. Perfectly fine.
But this is interesting that you bring all that up too, because I think, if we're talking from like an age standpoint, also, you watched this movie for the first time. I would assume you saw. Did you see it in theaters when you saw it for the first time?
I think I did. I did.
So you probably, I don't know how sophisticated you were thinking in terms of from a comedic standpoint back then.
Probably not from a comedic standpoint, but there was something in my heart that was like, something isn't right here. Like, this doesn't feel the way The Lion King felt. This doesn't feel the way Aladdin felt, So how did you, over the course of seeing this multiple times, develop this pinpointed reason for not liking it? Because that's really interesting to me that you felt that sense of it being off, and now with your knowledge of comedy, you finally understand why the story didn't land for you. But anyone has those feelings, right? You watch something and you're like, there's something about that just didn't connect or hit for me. And the more I watched it, I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times over the course of my life, is I would end up pinpointing on Eddie Murphy and just hating the character of Mushu. And trying to understand like what his analogous character was in those other movies, right?
Right.
Because he's not the genie from Aladdin. He's more like a Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of the role in the story. He's not driving it the way the genie does.
Right. He's, Timon or Pumbaa or Sebastian, sort of.
I think Sebastian, I think he ends up playing more of the flounder kind of thing of being the friend. But yeah, I think Sebastian is actually a really good analog, probably because he's given this assignment by the ancestors, right, to go help her. Except he kind of sneaks his way into that role, right? It's not supposed to be him. It's supposed to be the Great Stone Dragon.
But he's like smashes.
He's like, oh shit, I killed the Great Stone Dragon. I guess it's on me now, or I'm going to try and fulfill my destiny. He's kind of doing the Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life thing, right? Like, oh, if I succeed at this, maybe the ancestors will let me be a guardian of the family, I think.
Yeah, I can finally make my way to the top realm of the shrine where the other good guardians are.
Yeah. But every problem that Mulan faces throughout the story ends up being caused by Mushu. So he's there to help her, and all he does is hurt. If he hadn't shown up, she would have succeeded faster and better.
Okay. If you look at, I'm thinking back.
This is what I mean in terms of non-diegetic comedy, right? In modern animated films, a lot of the Illumination or DreamWorks films specifically, you have characters that flail and are clumsy and fall over themselves. Right? But I would trace that comedy to here, because everything that Mulan does that's clumsy or non-conforming or whatever ends up being because a cricket is down her back, or a dragon is whispering in her ear, or the dragon and the cricket set off these explosives, and the Huns see them because of these explosives. These aren't things that Mulan did. Mulan didn't do any of these things. Like, even during the montage, she gets in trouble for putting the pomegranate on the arrow. She didn't do that. Mushu did that.
Right.
She keeps getting in trouble for things that they do, and everyone's reactions to her about, not conforming to standards of femininity or being kind of a clumsy person or whatever, it's all because of these funny animals that are around her.
Right. I think, and also the, oh no, hold on, I'm hearing an echo. I think maybe there was a test. No, it's gone. All right, I don't know what that was. It was weird.
Okay.
I think I noticed that a little bit with Mushu, with Eddie Murphy's character for sure. The cricket really bugged me, and I don't remember. It's one of those things where, when you're a kid, I was 8 years old when this came out, so I'm seeing it. I'm primarily looking at the funny animals. I don't care about the historical context or the social context of the story. But watching it now, I definitely see oh, that cricket's annoying as hell. And
that cricket is the problem. Even when she goes to the matchmaker in the beginning, The cricket is the one jumping around her and making and tickling her and jumping into the matchmaker's bra and whatever, and like, you know,
taking a bath in the tea.
taking a bath in the damn tea. You know damn well that girl has to make a good impression, and you're gonna sit here and take a bath in her tea?
Don't take a
Are you
bath
her
in the
friend
tea.
or are you not her friend? And I guess that's my question for the. By the way, I'm looking at the Wikipedia. The cricket is named Crick-E.
Right. They say the name once. Mushu says it one time at the very end of the movie.
Crick-E. Yeah, it's Frank Welker, which of course it is.
And it also, it did hearten me reading about this movie to know that Cricky was not liked by the animators and the directors. They hated putting him in. The only reason they put him in is because Michael Eisner was like, we need another funny animal.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, you know, I sometimes I look at like movies from this era, and I think I'm going to go ahead and compare this to Prince of Egypt in a way.
Go for it.
Because Prince of Egypt needed a funny animal. You can't show that movie to kids today because they are not impressed by Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston doing a duet.
Right.
They don't care that it's Val Kilmer as Moses. That's, you know, that movie needed a funny animal. For real. Mm-hmm. Maybe a wisecracking camel, something.
Yeah,
you know?
an asp.
An asp. An asp would have been apt.
Yes.
Here, we needed fewer funny animals, or we needed animals that, or sidekick characters whose goals were more aligned with Mulan's.
Right.
Because I think, again, if we are comparing these characters to Sebastian never gets in Ariel's way. He's trying to help her. He becomes the butt of the joke. He gets smashed and slapped around and almost cooked and all of this stuff. But he's not, like, when it comes to, you know, she has to kiss the prince, he sings the song for them.
Yeah, he's setting them up.
Yeah, he's trying to get it done. Eddie Murphy here is completely working against Mulan, and at the end takes credit for her success. Goes back to, you know, George Takei at the end and is like, I did okay, didn't I? And George Takei is like, I guess you did okay. He didn't do okay.
He didn't do okay. He's the only reason that their position got exposed to the Huns is because he sneezed and launched a rocket off.
I didn't even know if he sneezed. We didn't see the scene. We're not looking inside of the cabin at that point, right? So we don't actually know what hijinks Cricky and Mushu got up to in there.
We just know that they did something and the rocket launched and fucked everything up.
But it makes sense for their characters because we're like, oh, these guys are always getting in the goddamn way. All right.
I think that's an actually... I mean, what I was thinking when I was watching this was I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it, given what I thought I was going to think about it, which was...
what did you think you were going to think about it?
Well, my memory of the movie is entirely based on I'll Make a Man Out of You. As I think probably 90% of people who remember this movie at all, that's what it is.
That's the strongest song.
Uh-huh.
Just bar none. And none of the other songs come even close.
Right. And it's you know, as far as Disney movie songs go, it's like top 5 all time, maybe, I think.
I don't know. Because it's certainly You'll Have a Friend Like, or a Friend Like Me. It's not Hakuna Matata or I Can't Wait to Be King. It's not Be Our Guest. You know, it's not Under the Sea. It doesn't hit the heights of those songs. It hits the height of the songs for this movie. And I'm not against it. I think it's interesting because you very rarely get Disney songs that are martial kind of like training songs.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a good montage. The animation is gorgeous. Like there's a lot of stuff in this movie that really works, and I'm surprised at, you know, given especially the way that this movie was regarded at the time, I'm surprised that it doesn't. It's not that it doesn't hold up, it's just that it's not memorable. Like, there's a lot of stuff, I think, even just beyond that sequence, there's a lot of really great animation throughout the whole thing. You can tell that the animators really did their research and tried to incorporate a lot of not only Chinese-style animation elements, but also cultural things,
location stuff. It was beautifully animated.
But that even bothers me too. Because we have, in the very beginning of the film, we have so we don't get an I Want song in this movie, right? Mm-hmm. Not really. We get a little bit of, the Reflections song.
Yeah, Reflections close, but not quite.
Yeah, it's not what I want, because she doesn't know what she wants at the beginning of the movie. She knows she doesn't fit in, and we don't know why she doesn't fit in, because she's beautiful, her clothes are neat, she is from a nice family, she cares about her parents, she loves her animals. Like, what is it that doesn't fit in about her, except that she is also smart?
Yeah,
like
she's
that's
a little mouthy. That's their biggest problem with her.
Is she? Is she even that mouthy?
Apparently, really. She is by the standards of this.
I guess
movie.
By the standards of the time, but we don't really see that, because she's a little bit late. She's trying to copy the answers on her hand. Mm-hmm. We see her cleverness. We see her help out the guy playing checkers outside of the room. She ties a bone to her dog to get her dog to do her chores for her.
A wasted animal, by the way. That
wasted
dog.
Funny animal, sure.
Wasted funny animal. I forgot that little brother was not an important part of this movie, and he should have been. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, I agree. So her main thing is her cleverness, like, as opposed to other Disney princesses, and I think, like, Belle is sort of the icon of her I Want song specifically fits into her theme. Everything that travels from there, that unrolls from there, is related to her wants and her needs. She's not looking for a relationship, but she winds up in this great romance. And, the idea that she doesn't want to get married is very specifically personified by Gaston, right? Mm-hmm. Here, we have this idea of, like, she's got to be a great bride. We don't see any of the, like, potential men she might end up with, right?
Right.
We don't know what... we don't know if she does or doesn't want to be a bride. She's going through with this thing. It kind of seems like she's doing it to please her parents. She wants to bring honor to us all, right? She wants to bring honor not only to her family, but to her town. Her whole town is singing about her bringing honor to us all. But it's such a vague idea, right? Honor, like... Here's a part that... So even during I'll Make a Man Out of You. So the reason she gets into this situation, our sort of 12th night slash Joan of Arc kind of thing going on, right? She dresses like a man. There's nothing in her wants to be more male or more masculine or a fighter or patriotic or fight for the world, right? That's not part of her wants.
Exactly.
The reason she gets into it is to protect her father, who she knows is going to die if she doesn't go, right?
Right. Except, well, here's the other... Yeah, even in the montage, you get the sense that if he did go, he would be sent home. Because...
Yeah, and she gets sent home in the middle of the montage. Our romantic lead... I have to look at these names, I'm sorry.
Li Shang.
He gives her horseback and is like, go. And that's... maybe it's a dishonorable discharge. Maybe, like, coming home and even if she were a son and she washed out of the army, maybe that would bring quote unquote dishonor to the family. I think that's perfectly valid, but they don't say it. Mm-hmm. No one in the movie says that. Like, well, you can't wash out. If you wash out, that'll bring dishonor to the family, and dishonor is the thing you're trying to avoid, right? Mm-hmm. So she's not there dressing like a man because she needs to not conform to femininity. She's there specifically for her dad. And, like, we see that when she shows up at the camp, because she's like, oh, I'm a dude, right? Like, oh, This is how dudes are. It's not like she has an innate masculinity. It's that her femininity doesn't conform, right?
Right. And so she just can't fit into the world, and she doesn't know how to do it. And, but this is the thing too, it's like...
But it's a little she's all that, right? Because she's still beautiful. She's still, there's nothing wrong with her. It's a very movie version of she's a nerd. It's like Nev Campbell coming home and being like, everyone said I was ugly.
I think the thing is, though, like, if you look at it from the perspective, the way I looked at it, at least, when I was taking my notes, was I think the messaging we get set up with very early on in the relationship with her and her father is it's okay to be somebody who's a late bloomer. It's okay to not know what you want right now. You can figure it out. And I think the journey is not an I want an X thing. It's just I want to figure out who I am. And so she thrusts herself into a situation where she knows, like, I want to protect my dad. So I'm going to do this thing, and I have no idea how I'm going to do it. And Eddie Murphy is certainly not going to help me achieve that, even though he says he's going to. But this is what I'm going to try and do. And this is what I'm going to try and pull off. I think, however, there's a lot of stuff that just, like... Let's look at Belle for a sec, right? Okay. I think that Mulan is a stronger character than Belle. But I think Belle makes a better princess.
Okay.
Because I don't think Mulan... I think the choice to, like, retroactively try and make Mulan fit the Disney princess role just because she's a female character, a female lead, I think that does her a disservice, because I think Mulan as a character is actually more interesting as somebody who has to figure out how to use what she already brings to the table to convince this super misogynistic group of soldiers and advisors, like, oh, women are worth more than just people who have their faces painted and serve me tea.
Right, and her big character trait is cleverness, right?
Exactly.
Her using the weights to go up the pole, her shooting the rocket at the mountain instead of at the Huns.
Right.
Her main character thing is cleverness.
It's very strong cleverness, because I would rather see somebody who's clever, who makes these strategic choices in the moment, even if, might
Whereas
not,
I think Belle's main thing, I would say Belle's main character trait is compassion, actually. Like, we see her with the animals at the beginning of her movie. She shows kindness to the beast, right? She takes care of his wounds. She steps in place of her father to be a prisoner. So that's really, like, her compassion, and that's why Gaston is, like, such a perfect bad guy for her, because here's a guy that feels no compassion for anybody. He's a guy who only cares about himself. Everybody only wants to care about Gaston, and that's it. That's right. Here, we don't have a bad guy like that. Here's my other thing. Okay. Because this movie did a racism, right?
Yeah.
Especially with regards to the Mongolian characters, right? So we have this bad guy. Miguel Ferrer plays Shan Yu, who is this Mongolian warlord or general or president. I don't know what he is. He's supposed to be the Huns. He's the Huns. Right. He's the vague concept of the Huns. Yes. And he shows up, and all the Huns have gray skin and yellow eyes and fangs. They aren't monsters. They're not gargoyles. They're not werewolves. They are Mongolian people. Like, that's it. That's the only difference. And we have turned them into monsters here, which, in a movie that is lauded rightly for its representation, is not good. True. And we don't know what he wants. He doesn't get a song. The only motivation we hear from him is, you guys put a wall up. Oh, you guys tried to protect yourselves, and I'm gonna fuck you up. I think he's sort of like ostensibly the villain, just because he is the big bad guy who they have the big fight scene with at the end. I think this movie, here's a swing, here's a take. Is the villain in this movie just men? The perception that men have? I guess it's society at large, but it also does the kind of... what's the word for this? The Emperor is a too good to be true character. Like, right at the beginning, we get the Emperor being like, his advisor is like, we have to get you to safety. We have to protect the palace. And he's like, no, we have to protect my people. And you have the Emperor of China saying that his priority is to protect farmers and peasants.
Right.
And that's very nice for a movie and making him kind of a father figure and whatever, but not really like accurate to the kind of priorities that person would have had at the time, right?
Yeah.
And again, not a big deal. It's a Disney version of it, but you come to the end of the movie and he's like, screw those peasant priorities. You're a great soldier. And by the way, you better go after her, Lee, because you don't find a girl like that every dynasty, right? And so, like, this character who should represent the wider society just represents our sort of benevolent fatherhood or benevolent masculinity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a very good point. I don't have a good answer to that point either. That's the other thing.
But it just goes to what you were saying of like, what's the villain here? Is the villain society at large? Well, the Emperor kind of should be the personification of that. I think the character that does end up being the personification of that is the advisor guy.
Oh yeah, that guy's a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, real piece of shit, but like isn't part of the climax. Like doesn't step in at the end to try and hurt Mulan or turn against China or any of those things, right?
Right.
So he doesn't play the bigger role of villain. Our villain is the guy we were talking about, our Hun guy. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm forgetting these people's names. Shan Yu.
Right.
So Shan Yu does not play her theme at all. He has his very own set of priorities, even though they're super vague. I'm just a bad guy. I have yellow eyes. I have fangs. I'm here to fight you guys. And this is, I think, the only one of these Disney Renaissance movies that is a war film that I think you could classify as like a war movie.
Yeah.
But we go from he's coming in with this whole army, and after Mulan brings down a mountain on his army, there's like 6 of them left, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes from like an invading army to kind of the Dirty Dozen. It kind of becomes like a group of terrorists attacking the capital.
Right.
And so, and then like that helps to bring the scale down. So it's like, it's the Hun bandits versus our small squadron of guys. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened to the rest of Lee's army.
Right. And also that the movie, if there's a big critique I do have with the movie, it is that it wraps up too neatly at the very end. It's too quick. I rarely would say make a movie longer, but I think you could probably add another, not much, maybe like 5 minutes onto this movie. I haven't
seen the remake, but my instinct with how these remakes go is they probably turned the climax into a big Lord of the Rings style battle scene. No, I haven't seen it. That's just my guess.
I would imagine. But this is the other thing is like...
So, but I do think that this needs that. I think this needs a bigger war at the end. Because the idea of... Because what is... what is Shan fighting for at the end? Like, he's the personification of a character who's already lost. And he's just still doing it. He's still trying to invade the capital. He's still trying to get the Emperor. And what does he think he's going to get by killing the Emperor? Just revenge on, like, you put up a wall?
He just, he gets to do it in front of the entirety of China.
Yeah.
I guess. But that's the thing is, like, I feel like this movie hit my, like, it ticked the box for me of, like, being simple enough to understand as a kid. But also, like, it's unsophisticated in the story that it's telling. Absolutely. I think the messaging that it's getting across, despite some concern at the time from like a feminism perspective,
that it didn't do feminism quite right.
That's what they're saying. You have people who are saying like it didn't quite do feminism right, even though I think it actually does from a feminist standpoint. I think it does a pretty good job.
We also know there's several types of feminism.
Right.
Every woman is different. Everyone can play their own version.
Right.
Of
no
feminism.
woman is a monolith.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that the standpoint of this actual from Pam Coates, who's one of the producers, the film aims to present a character who exhibits both masculine and feminine influences, being both mentally and physically strong. I think that that's achieved, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. However, I think that there are parts of this movie that just don't like. The more we talk about it, the more I think like maybe there is a reason why, even though I like this, I don't think it's bad. There has to be a reason why this is not a hugely memorable Disney film. And I think now that I'm looking at also the remake, it really is a complete not just a remake, like redone from top to bottom almost.
I know that there is a Chinese
version
of Fa Mulan as a film, and it's available on YouTube. I would recommend people seek that out. You know, a movie that is made by Chinese people for Chinese people,
right?
That, you know, they understand what this myth is and what this myth is at its core. You know, like that's I think that's important for a culture to tell their own story. Like both versions of Mulan, the animated and the live action, are made by mostly white people.
Oh yeah, I think that, you know, that is going to color the storytelling in a way.
It is, yeah, for sure.
And and that doesn't mean
you get the most American of American actors, Eddie Murphy, playing this dragon, and the dragon ends up harming the story throughout.
He does. By the way, this is a note that I have a question for you on this, because I was looking to see. I remember we talked about the Eddie Murphy stuff when we were talking about doing this episode to begin with at all, and I was looking to see who else they had considered besides Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
And by God, I would have loved to have heard the Joe Pesci version of Mushu the Dragon.
No, because it still would have been Mushu falling all over himself and tripping up, and, you know, and Cricky, you know, causing the matchmaker to fall into a pot of coals or whatever. Like, it's.
But I think if you give it to Joe Pesci instead of Eddie Murphy, I think Eddie Murphy rightfully has become, you know, his iconic animated character role is Donkey from Shrek. There's a reason this didn't hit as big character-wise, and they were trying to catch lightning in a bottle and do the Robin Williams thing again.
They're trying to do the Robin Williams thing. Robin Williams comes with a lot more caring, a lot more warmth. Nothing against Eddie Murphy, but, you know, the way he came up was raw, you know, and there's a reason it's raw. Like, he's a dude who, you know, as a comedian, his whole persona is, I don't give a fuck. And now we're putting him in the role of a caretaker. Robin Williams, on the other hand, has a very paternal kind of thing. And even his relationship with Aladdin, you know, is, maybe this is reading too much into it, but there is some fatherhood stuff there. We have this character who doesn't have parents. We have this genie who is an elder character who is teaching him a lesson about be yourself, be honest, right? Here, Mushu, it's just so confusing what he wants. I don't understand.
I think if they were really trying to capture the lightning in a bottle thing again to some degree, maybe not exactly what you did with Robin Williams as the genie, because that's impossible to replicate. You can't replicate that, right? But I think if you cast like a Joe Pesci or Richard Dreyfuss, who I know is the other actor who they were out to, you have somebody who's a little bit more, gives it a little bit more of that paternalness that Eddie Murphy lacks. And also, I think there's potential. This is why Joe Pesci springs to mind so much. Thinking about him as his Home Alone character. There's an element of like mischievousness and lived-in-ness.
Yeah, he's a great actor. Yeah, you're right. He has that lived-in. He has an experience in his voice. Like, you can hear every year of his life in his voice, for sure.
And I think that...
Here's the note. Let's see what you think about this. What if Mushu is female? So, like,
Ooh.
and this just hit me by virtue of you saying, like, there's a paternalness, and we want this character to kind of act like another father. But Mulan is not a character who doesn't have a father.
That's true.
She's got a father, and actually a really good father, who sits with her and says, everyone blossoms at their own time, right? That's what her father does, is you don't know your place yet, but you will, right?
Right.
She's not lacking for a good father figure. And then we get to the Emperor of China, who's also a father figure, right?
Right.
When he meets her, he accepts her. He's like, you are different from other people, but I value you because you are, what he says at the beginning of the film is like, you never know if a grain of rice is going to, whatever, change the tide of war, is essentially what he's saying, right? He's saying every single part has a place.
Right.
And so he's a very positive father figure there. He doesn't represent toxic masculinity the way, Shan does, right?
Right.
I guess I don't know, whatever. What if Mushu is female? And so Mulan gets a mother figure who's not trying to change her. That's what we don't have here. Every female in her life wants to change her. Even grandma, who's kind of like, she's a rascally old lady, she still wants what all the other women in the town want. Right. Which is to get this girl married off.
I think that actually that would change the movie dramatically. In the memorable realm.
In the memorable realm, I agree, because then the ancestors, they are living the same culture as everyone else. They're like, well, we can't send a guardian or a totem after her who's going to, who's not a male. Like, only a male could do this, right? Like, they have those feelings too. And then you have a female comedian, a female actor. Throw Margaret Cho in there. Imagine it was Margaret Cho.
Yeah. Oh, it's a no-brainer.
Look, Margaret Cho is Korean. Obviously, look, we have our cast here. It's interesting to me because we have a who's who of Asian actors from the late 90s. I imagine there were like several movies in this decade, like Joy Luck Club and maybe a couple of others, where it was like, all right, guys, everyone, we all know each other. We're all coming together to, because there was sort of a limited number of Asian actors in Hollywood who were like, allowed to be leads at that time, right?
Right.
So, the fact that we have James Hong and we have BD Wong in here, we have Ming Na, we have Getty Watanabe, really, really Pat Morita, George Takei. Obviously this is like pan-Asian, this is people from every single nationality in Asia. Right. But make Margaret Cho Mushu. Now you're playing the world of female in a male world, right? Mm-hmm. So it's reflecting what's going on with Mulan instead of working against it.
I think it's that's a great way to flip it, because then I also think that addresses some of the potentially some of the feminist critiques that people have. But who's to say? I have no idea, but I will say that immediately sounds like a more memorable movie than what Mulan currently is, which I think is a perfectly fine movie, but certainly is lacking something in that, just that little extra special bit that makes this a top tier Disney movie.
Yeah, I think that too. I think so. A couple of things I wanted to point out that, by the way, in terms of representation, that are good. We have, so Ming Na brings a lot of authenticity, obviously, with her. Mm-hmm. We have a couple of moments of very, very specific Asian vocal tics that she brings to the table, that if you had just brought whatever white actor playing an Asian role, you just wouldn't get. Things like in the beginning when she's frustrated, she goes, "Ah, yeah."
Yep.
She doesn't go oi. She doesn't go. Mm-hmm. She doesn't go. Oh, geez. She doesn't go. Ugh. She goes ah yeah, which is a very specific Asian thing. Right. She calls her father Baba, which is a thing she does also on ER. I don't know if you've done an ER rewatch since it's been on Hulu, but she has a nice long story arc with her father. Calls her father Baba. In any other Disney princess movie, might have been Papa or Father or whatever, right?
Right.
So I really do want to give this movie all the props for making sure that its lead was Asian when at the time they might not have. You know, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that they would.
Right.
So I don't know. I want to give it
this is not the Sultan from Aladdin calling Jasmine daughter instead of Habibi, which would have been a great move. This is clearly they put the care into it. They put the time in. The
one thing the Sultan does do is, Allah forbid you should have any daughters. And that's a little bit like, well, okay, you're still using a Christian framework to do this thing.
And, you know, shout out to Donny Osmond for trying really hard to do B.D. Wong's voice for the song. I think he did. He put in a lot of time. Did he
change his voice for it? I figure he's just singing, no?
He is. I mean, he's singing, but he said specifically that he really wanted to make sure that he captured some of B.D. Wong's like vocal presence and sing the song in a way that did not sound like it was just Donny Osmond singing the song.
There is one song in here that I think is egregiously bad, and you tell me if you tell me what you think.
I've got a couple in mind.
Well, I think, I don't think any of the songs are particularly great. I think Make a Man Out of You is great, actually rises to the level of like what we expect from a Disney movie. Mm-hmm. But the one that is egregiously bad is A Girl Worth Fighting For.
Oh, that one's terrible. I hated that.
It's terrible, it's sexist, it's cringy, it's racist. There's so much bad in that song. I can't imagine. And also, by the way, just in terms of musical structure, and I'm not a musician, I can't speak to like rhythm and melody and all of that, but in the structure of a musical, and you've probably heard this several times from people who study musicals, is when a character is speaking and their emotions get too high, they have to start singing. That's that's why a musical is a musical. Right. A character's emotions got so big that the only thing that could contain them is a song. And then when the words of a song, when the lyrics of a song get too big, they have to dance, right? Mm-hmm. That's sort of what people say about musicals, is that's kind of like what the structure of it is. There is no intro to that song. They're like going to the war. There's no moment where someone's like, you know what I miss? Dames. It's not. It's the same song as South Pacific, right?
Again, huh?
Yeah, and then they just start singing the song about a girl worth fighting for, but it means nothing, and I don't understand what it's for. It's just a bad song, and you're doing it at exactly the wrong moment because they're heading off to war. Why is now the time they're thinking about women?
Yeah.
Why?
I hated that song. I also am not a huge fan of Please Bring Honor to Us All, but mostly because it feels like the song goes on too long and they get really lazy with some of the lyrics. Like there is a point where they rhyme me with me.
Oh, the worst lyric is actually the first lyric in it. I wrote it down because it was so bad, because it's the seamstress character at the very beginning goes, "This is what you give me to work with. Well, honey, I've seen worse."
Yeah.
Because she's contradicting herself.
Yeah, that's like saying I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Versus I could care less. It's it's like the details. You fuck up the details.
And the function of that song, "You'll Bring Honor to Us All," is essentially the same as Bonjour in Beauty and the Beast, or what's the song from the Lego movie?
Everything is Awesome.
Everything is Awesome, right? It's a This Is Our World song. Mm-hmm. Welcome to this world that you haven't been in before. Exactly. So it's telling us, okay, honor is a really important part of our world. But we don't get her I Want song until after, and the I Want song, like you said, is so muddled because she doesn't have a specific want. She wants to know who she is. She doesn't know who she is. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a really defined, like, what her goal would be.
Yeah.
So these are all the reasons that I'm...
I think you got valid reasons, and I think you maybe like the movie less than I did. I certainly, with the context now and rewatching it, I think that it's got some sleeper potential, but it doesn't quite live up to what it could be.
Do you think... So, in our big climax, kind of bandits versus tiny squad of soldiers, her big idea is to dress up her buddy soldiers as ladies to sneak in to the palace. Do you think that... And that was, I guess, in some way meant to reflect her cross-dressing?
Yes.
But they just have a little scene of like, we're pretending to be ladies, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the whole thing. It's almost Die Hard at the end, right? They just have to, lick off every henchman that they can until they get to the big bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And dressing up as women doesn't really like have that much of an effect.
No, all it does is you get them saying concubines, and it's another joke that flies over the heads of children.
Yeah,
so that the parents can be like,
there's a few times in this movie that we use the word drag, and I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that these characters are in drag so much as they are cross-dressing, right? I mean, any of your commenters who know more about that world can certainly correct me, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as I know, drag queens don't use apples that they've taken bites out of. There's one. I mean, but who's to say? I have no idea. That world is not anywhere close to mine, as far as my understanding goes.
What do you think about Harvey Fierstein? So here's our character, is the only character throughout the movie who plays toxic masculinity to a comedic extent, right? Mm-hmm. So he's our only character that is like sort of overly macho, like specifically in opposition to other characters' femininity. He walks around, he's kind of Wolverine, right? He's short and he's stocky. He's like, ooh, I'm a muscly guy. I don't like that pretty boy. Like, he says stuff like that. One eye is permanently closed.
Permanently blackened. He's and he's just like, he literally is like swinging his dick around at one point. It's
but he's Harvey Fierstein.
Guessing Harvey Fierstein is that. It's just like, but there's some level of, we know what we're doing here. Like, he's literally winking at the audience the whole time, I guess.
Okay, that's a good point. All right, you know what? I like this movie now. You got me. Just by the virtue of that.
Here's something. By the way, this is to wrap things up here. I think we've covered this movie tip to tail as best as we could, but we both are sort of ambivalent to slight liking of this movie. But you have some people who are with you right now who are ready and willing to tear your entire argument to the ground.
Yeah, let me go get these children.
Go grab them. Yeah, this is a special news segment called Gil brings his niece and nephew on to refute his arguments, which is, I admit, very specific for this one episode. But hey, future guests, if you get to this far in the episode, as you're listening for your research and you have family members who you want to bring on to refute your arguments, feel free. Now's the time.
We wanted to bring my nephew on to tell me why I'm wrong, because obviously I'm a 37-year-old guy and I'm watching the movie from my perspective. And so I was like, oh, well, an actual child is going to have different opinions.
Right.
And you're about to be surprised because he didn't like it either.
Oh, Lucas. Wait, how old are you, first of all?
10.
You're 10. Okay. Was this your first time seeing it?
It's going to be. No, it's like my 4th.
Oh, you've seen it a lot. You and Gil have seen it almost the same amount of times.
That's true.
All right, what's your take?
Okay, so I'm just getting my pros out of the way because there's very little.
Hit me, Lucas.
The characters were written good, like the main characters, and I liked. My favorite character was the little short-tempered guy.
Okay.
That had
Harvey Fierstein,
like broken eye.
Yeah. Well, why was he your favorite?
He was just
because he was funny.
He was funny. He was short-tempered. He punched everyone. Good enough.
All right.
There you go.
It was funny. It was funny a couple times, like the scene where he just kept on punching everyone. He just did.
Very punch heavy pros list here.
Yes, because my favorite Pokemon is Machamp because he just has a bunch of arms to punch.
There you go. What about Hitmonchan? You like him? All right. So, well, do you have any other pros besides the level of punching that the short-tempered guy does?
Yeah, it had good animation.
Okay. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it had really good animation.
I'm with you there.
The good fights, like Sean versus Mulan, or Sean versus...
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Them on the rooftop, that was actually a really good fight scene.
Yeah,
good fight scene.
With the firework at the end.
Yeah, with the firework. I agree.
Yeah.
Then there's just Eddie Murphy.
You liked Eddie Murphy?
Just Eddie Murphy in general.
All right, cool.
And then the plot was good. It was a pretty good, like, the girl was meant to be a bride, but then she had to, she wanted to fight for the army because she knew her dad was getting really old and he had a broken leg or whatever. And then my cons.
Hit me with your cons.
I kind of went through these again, and I'm kind of going to cross them out as I go. So, one of them was how the horse faces were animated.
Specifically,
we didn't even touch on this.
Yeah,
the design of horses in particular.
Yeah, because it was so like their nose part was so narrow and very, very weird, and the way the end where their chin was like it like came out. Like
that's
bottom.
true. Yeah, this is no Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron as far as horse animations go.
Do you know that movie?
Nope.
Okay.
If you hate the horses in this movie, you should watch Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron because that's very good horse animation.
I'll probably watch it. Then there was the unlikable characters like the Emperor's assistant and the commanding officer. I didn't like him that much, but he wasn't like. I didn't hate him.
What were some things you didn't like about him?
He's supposed to be like this very strong character. They literally explained how strong he was and kind of showed him as this strong man, like very... Because he was, like, the scene where he held Mulan's weights.
When she can't do it on the mountain.
Exactly, and... But... At the end scene, he got ambushed. Like, I know he got ambushed, and it was a like sneak attack.
Sure, but he got ambushed so that Mulan
but he's the commanding officer.
Okay, so he shouldn't have gotten ambushed like that. Was you were saying because he has the innate skills,
right? Well, this is also. I mean, hey, the Emperor's advisor guy was right. He did just get the job because it was a family affair. Exactly. It was nepotism.
That's right.
And then the characters, the bad-looking characters, not the animation, but how they looked.
But some of the ugly characters.
Yeah, exactly. Like the kids in one scene and the first song, the kids were like very, very weird looking.
You said they had messed up teeth.
Yeah, they had like messed up teeth, no hair, and very like weird looking. Like everyone who wasn't a main character just looks like a 5-year-old sketched it and then they drew it.
Yeah, that kind of that happens a lot in especially Disney movies, I think, where if you stare at any of the side characters for more than a couple minutes, you'll see that they just are giving up on them or they're like doing the same animation over and over again.
Yeah. And like they just didn't look good.
Okay.
And then this kind of goes with two pieces of my notes. Like, it was fast pacing, and then there's the song montages.
Okay.
So, the songs were good. I love the songs. But, however, it was I would have liked to see more of a relationship with the characters in the training. Like, did you see the live action one?
No, I haven't. Does that have more of a relationship in the training?
In the training.
Okay.
They actually built up like a relationship through the fighting that they did, the training.
Okay.
So I like that more in the live action than because I love the songs, but I would have liked to see more of a relationship through the characters.
Yeah, because every character, you don't really get an actual sense of whether or not they're developing that camaraderie that you would. If you're seeing them actually develop that through
they shove it all kind of into that pond bathing scene.
Yeah,
they're like, we like you now, Mulan, or whatever.
Yeah, we're sorry we were rude to you before. Let's start over.
Yeah.
Let's start over by being naked in a pond.
Mm-hmm. That actually goes with one of these. The unnecessary scene.
You thought that scene was unnecessary?
Yes, because if they didn't have the song montage, they could have built up their relationship in the training instead of the pond scene. So if they did not have the pond scene, and they just had it instead of the song montages, then it would have been better to show them accepting Mulan now.
All right, great. Well, let's go through these a little bit faster.
And then there was the like sexism parts where Mulan said like all the men warriors were these like
They're all like picking
disgusting.
their noses and
Yeah,
being gross.
they're just disgusting.
Yeah, using chopsticks to clean out between their toes.
Yeah.
They're
And
like,
then-
men are gross, and that's true. We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And then, but it's also on the men's side because they also were like, women can't fight. They're
Right.
just supposed to be brides and stuff.
Sure. I mean, look, that's the point of the movie.
Yeah, that was
In the
the
end.
point of the movie.
Let's
Right.
keep going.
And then the fireworks scene. This goes with the how bad Mushu was of a character. Cause
Okay.
like if in the fireworks scene, this is not the fireworks scene where Sean got hit at the back of the in the back. This is where he got.
In the
This
snow.
is where this is in
Yeah.
the snow where Mushu set off the
He
fireworks.
sets up the rocket back
Yeah.
and gives away their position.
Yeah, because Mushu he did do this because the cricket doesn't have any fire powers,
Right.
and no one else was in there. No one else was in the the cabin thing, whatever it's called, trailer. And so it had to be Mushu.
Had to be Mushu.
It had to be
Had
Mushu.
to be Mushu.
Well, we don't know what they did in there. You know,
Exactly, that's
But
also-
we know
that's
we know that
also a part.
Mushu and Cricky like to screw around. That's what we know about them.
They're
But
cut,
it was
they
still
did a lot
his
of
fault.
antics. They got a lot
It still would've been
into
his
crazy
fault.
situations.
Still would have been his fault.
Yeah,
You're
it
right.
still would have been his fault, even if they were messing around. The weak characters, this kind of goes with the commanding officer guy. That more correlates to when he got ambushed and stuff like that. And then and then Sean, the villain, I think that's his name. He was very unexplained and bad written, cause he was like, why is he a vampire? What did he? Why does he have this like strength? What relationship does he have with the Emperor? What did he do to like set
Look at
off
this
China?
analysis over
This
here.
is very good. You're
Yeah.
gonna make a great script doctor someday, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
What did he do to like set off China? Why is he mad at the wall? And
Why is he just mad at that wall?
So mad at the wall.
He says, "You built a wall. You shouldn't build that wall."
exactly,
He's really
it's-
mad at it.
And then the races,
Then the racism.
because
Yes.
the villain was Mongolian, and they're drawn as like these vampire-y, pale, darkish pale. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, they like
That's
a
gray,
weird
way to-
gray skin
Yeah,
and yellow
gray
eyes.
skin.
We were talking about that.
Gray
sure.
skin, yellow eyes. And they also, like, his assistants too, Sean's assistants, also looked bad. Like, they also had, like, the out jaw, no
Oh, yeah,
teeth.
the whole Hun army. They all look like that.
Yeah, they all
Yeah.
look like that. So, there's that too.
Okay, so what's your overall? Am I wrong? Am I just an old guy who doesn't get cartoons?
4.5
I'm 4.5 out of what?
out of 10.
I'm a 4.5 wrong.
No.
The movie's a
the
4.5
overall.
out of
The
10.
overall, yeah. The overall of the movie.
I wouldn't give it much higher than that. I would say I usually go out of 5, so I'll up it to 10 just for your sake. I would give this probably like a solid like 5 out of 10. I think it's straight down the middle of the road. It's totally fine. Which I guess actually that's a 6 out of 10, which is if we're grading 3 out of 5.
A bit
Okay.
too high.
But it's just like it's fine. It's not
Yeah.
a great movie. It's not a terrible movie.
Yeah.
It's just kind of it was a movie.
Which I think,
guess
by the
so,
way,
but-
makes this a perfect candidate to be remade, right? Because when
Yes,
a movie is
'cause
just okay, that's exactly the kind of movie you want to remake. And apparently they just kind of whiffed it on the remake, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people didn't like that for whatever reason. They like inserted a witch into it.
Yeah, they made it. They
made a
changed
witch.
the plot completely. It sounds.
They made it instead of
No, the hawk. The hawk was the witch.
the hawk was the
Yeah,
witch.
the hawk.
Oh, okay.
That was the hawk in the
gotcha.
remake. Also, what's with the hawk? Why does he
What's
like
with the
Sean? Why does he
Well,
like?
every character in a
so-
Disney
Every
movie
character's got an
has-
animal.
Yeah, they all
Yeah.
have their animals, right?
But
Yeah.
theirs were like sort of explained, and also the animals are usually on the main character side. Like,
yeah, but he was theoretically a main character. Jafar has Iago, right?
right,
Right. And,
Ursula has her eels.
right.
The Duke of whatever from Pocahontas is the bulldog.
They got a little bulldog. Sure, every bad guy has their animal sidekick.
I guess so. But it's just with the main villain, it didn't make sense even more. Like, it would have made sense if the main villain was written.
Well, yeah, if he had any,
right? If he
I
had,
wish that.
yeah.
I wish the bad guy had a song. I don't know. You know, I'm going to look at the Wikipedia. Maybe
he needs to be prepared.
He definitely needs to be prepared. Because again, we were talking about all these Disney Renaissance movies, and all of those villains are really strong because they have a very specific motivation that connects to our main characters. Right,
like the what's the guy from the Frog movie where they turned into Princess and the Frog? Yeah.
Oh,
he
yeah.
wanted to gain the power to be with the devil guys.
Right. He was like, having these voodoo situations.
With the voodoo
right.
tiki guys.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking much more about the early Renaissance films. You know, you got your Ursula who wants to usurp her brother Triton, and you have, Gaston who wants to marry Belle, and we have Scar who wants to be king and is jealous of his brother, and who am I leaving out? Jafar, who is tired of being an advisor to kind of a simpleton, a king. He thinks he can. Scar's whole thing is really about snobbishness. Like, he's like, oh, I think the poor are dumb, and I'm smart because I'm wealthy and an aristocrat, right?
All right. Mm-hmm. Wait, now that I think about it, what's the Peter Pan guy? The Peter Pan
Captain
villain?
Hook.
Captain Hook. What was his motive?
Well,
he wants to get listen, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we're not on Peter Pan today.
Peter Pan's got this whole other set of issues that we got to deal with another time. But Lucas, thanks for coming on.
He wants to get that Peter Pan. That's what his thing is.
Yeah.
He wants to get revenge because the crocodile took his hand, right?
Yeah, he wants to get his hand back with the watch. Anyway, Lucas,
yes.
I'm glad that you also recognize that this movie is not super great. So thank you for your insight.
Got it.
Thanks so much for having us. You're gonna head out?
Yes.
All right.
Well, let's wrap this thing up
Let's wrap it
proper.
up.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being a great guest, Lucas.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, I don't know if Lucas has social media, but don't go find him there. Where can you find Gil instead? Gil, where can people find you if they want to try and convince themselves that Mulan is
Yeah, feel free to come
higher
yell
up?
at me. I'm perfectly happy being wrong. I have no problem with that. You can find me at GJ Barron on all of the things. And of course, you can find my shows. I'm getting a phone call right now, so I don't know if that's interrupting us.
Oh, so close.
So close. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My shows can be found at Your Late Night on all of the socials, and please tune in. This month we have Fizza Dosani is going to be hosting her own show.
Oh, I love Fizza. She's great.
Couldn't be more excited. Yeah, if you don't know, Your Late Night is a talk show, a late night show, where every month a different comedian hosts their very own talk show in their own voice and their own point of view, and we're at nowherecomedyclub.com, so you can go there and buy tickets.
And when is this month's show, by the way?
February 19th at
Perfect.
7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern.
So get your tickets. Go check it out. It's a great show, and with great guests and comedians on there. And you can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates, live and live streamed. Live comedy's coming back because cases are down. Good news. And if you like the show, tell a friend. And consider subscribing to the Patreon, where you can get things like bonus episodes and join the Blockbusting Film Club and watch movies together. That's it. Gil.
Hi, I'm Gil Barron, and I've been blockbusted.
There you go. Thanks again, Gil.
Thanks so much for having me.
This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.